All right. From the PGA Tour to the gridiron, we bring in our good friend Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to talk a little OTAs, little quarterback room, and a little bit more here on the show today. Good afternoon, Fred. How are you?
Hey, Sam, doing great.
Good, man. Hey, I know we're about less than an hour away from you, but what's the weather like up where you're at right now?
Well, right now it's dry. Looks a little bit grayish, but I need some rain. I just planted some crops yesterday.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. Reason I ask is we just got gully washed down here, and I got to be thinking about, OTAs and, the difference between OTA weather, then mandatory, and then the camp that starts, and you kind of run the gamut of Northeast Ohio between maybe mist and wind and hot and humid, and it's like, okay, what are we going to get today? So OTAs 2025, Fred Greetham, give us a front row seat. What did you see that really stuck out to you that maybe could transfer over here as we get ready for the kickoff for the regular season in less than 100 days?
Well, first, it's really hard, to evaluate some of the key positions because there's no pads and there's no tackling, there's no contact and different things like that. But it just seems overall that they're a little more lively. They're doing more things at the same time. I think part of it's out of need because you got 4 quarterbacks, so you're almost running 2 practices or 2 things on 2 fields with 2 quarterbacks each. With that said, it's hard to evaluate. Everybody wants to know what the quarterbacks, how they look. And, and it's like, Sam, if you're on one field watching them and I'm on another field and then they switch fields, I might have seen 5 great throws for touchdowns. And then when they switch, you might see one bad play and say, man, the guy doesn't look very good. And so it's really, I find a lot is what you're looking for and who you're, if you have a favorite is how you look at it. And so I just think right now, at the quarterbacks, Joe Flacco looks like he's most ready to play, and that's obvious. He's 18-year veteran. But Kenny Pickett, he's looking pretty good, but he is, not throwing the ball. I'm not seeing him throw the ball downfield as much as I'm seeing with Flacco, which is kind of expected. He has a reputation of trying to take care of the ball and check down and get the ball out quick. And then you got the young guys, it's like some just aren't, in the time we're out there, aren't getting the reps, in front of us. I see Sanders make some really good throws. I've seen some improvement in him even since rookie mini camp. And Gabriel, I see him make good throws as well. And so it's all over the place. It's hard to evaluate it. We'll know more and more, I think, next week when we have 3 days in a row of getting to watch them on the field and everybody being there. But, when you got close to 90 guys, it's hard to hone in and see, what's exactly going on. But to give you an overall feeling, there are some impressions. I think that, the wide receiver position, I'm a little concerned with it, especially, the depth yesterday. Cedric Tillman, Michael Woods didn't practice, and Deontay Johnson hasn't been there when we've been there. So you had Jerry Jeudy and a bunch of guys that you don't know much about. And so it's good for the young guys, but I don't know. I don't know what they have, depth-wise and even at the top of the order.
Another thing that people may not realize, Fred, and how much are you able to really watch? Aren't there is a day or days where the media really isn't even allowed to be around?
Oh yeah, like today I think today they're off, but I think tomorrow then they're back out. The media has been at the last 2 Wednesdays, so we were there Wednesday and a week ago Wednesday. Next week is really the biggest look, and that's the mandatory mini camp, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We will be able to be out there watching the whole practice. I'm assuming that's what we've been able to do with the OTAs, and that's usually how it goes. And so, yeah, when Kevin Stefanski says they're rotating the quarterbacks, we have no idea if Shedeur Sanders is getting the reps on the days we're not seeing. I can say yesterday, on 11 on 11s, he made a nice throw, but he was throwing with the backups.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows, if he's getting them on the other days. I can only go by what Stefanski said, and no reason not to believe him is that they're rotating them every day. It's just the days we're out there, we're not really seeing a lot of reps from the younger guys.
In a wild world, let's just say that the Browns open up a preseason action, say this Saturday night against Team X. What do you think the rotation would be as far as quarterbacks, if you could kind of get inside the mind of Coach Stefanski?
Yeah, if it was preseason, I would say that Kenny Pickett would probably start the game.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Joe Flacco would come in. I don't know if they feel like he would need, to play in a game. But if they were to rotate in with all of them, then I think Flacco would be next, and then you'd have Doe and Gabriel and Sanders. They might just go with the younger guys, but that's the way I feel. Pickett is getting the first turn in most everything. I think right now he would be the guy in the pole position. But if I was to start the regular season today, who's looked the best to me is Joe Flacco, because he's not afraid to throw the ball downfield, and he's just been there and done that. And with the schedule they have, the first 6 games, those are all teams. The only team that didn't have a great record was the Bengals, and they were 9-8. So, it really is the decisions they have to make. Are they going for it in that grueling schedule? I think you'd feel more at ease having Flacco out there. Or are you going to see what you have in Kenny Pickett if he wins the job? That's the way I feel. You start it, and then anything can go from there. Gabriel and Sanders, I think, would see the field sometime this year, but I do think it depends on how the season starts in those first 5-6 games, and it sets the table for the season.
Fred Greetham is our guest from the Orange and Brown Report at Fred Greetham 9, at Fred Greetham 9 on X. Check him out. Does a lot of great stuff, videos, photos, breaking news, interviews. Check him out at Fred Greetham 9 on X. So with the preseason being 3 games now and 17 games in the regular season, we think we kind of have an idea how the Browns are approaching this year by the way they drafted and the way things are kind of setting up. I don't think a lot of us would be surprised if the Browns only won maybe 4 or 5 games. They could win more, but I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. With that being said, Fred, with Kevin Stefanski, how many snaps do you think he would like to get Shedeur in the preseason? And then does he even think about the regular season as far as that's concerned?
Well, I think that, we saw with DTR, he was kind of the preseason star in his years here. And, I think that you're going to see a lot with Gabriel and Sanders in the preseason. And I also think that they're, unless they've just decided that they're going to go with, Pickett, I would expect him to get, reps to see what they really have in him in winning, potentially winning that position. And I think they have to start making decisions, certainly not now, but I think after the the mini camp next week, then going into training camp, you're going to start to see some definition of what direction they're thinking, because you just physically can't have 4 guys getting reps and getting them ready for the season. So it will be quite interesting. That will obviously be the story. But I do think Sanders and Gabriel will play a lot in the preseason. And I would think Pickett would as well, because he's trying to earn the trust here that he can be the starting quarterback.
I was flipping through your activities on X yesterday. I believe it was yesterday, maybe last night. And DeJuan Jones, and I thought, whoa. And I was looking off of my cell phone. I said, whoa, he looks like he dropped some serious weight. and got, looks a little, meaner and leaner. What's the story on Dewan? What kind of regimen did he have, and how much weight did he lose?
Yeah, he said that he got with the nutritionist with the Browns and was really on a serious. He kept stressing lean body mass and converting some of his excess weight into, leaner muscle mass and body weight. And he said overall, he was kind of reluctant on the weight,
Mm-hmm.
but he did say about 20 pounds overall, but he kept stressing. I think what he's saying is he dropped a lot of fat and turned it into muscle mass or lean weight. Overall, he's down a little bit, but you can see from that picture video I put on there, that he's redefined his body. He's
Mm-hmm.
a big man. He's 6'8". They list him at 374. I don't think he's that at all. He might be closer to 350 or a little even less than that. But he looked pretty good. I have a video of him at left tackle protecting Dylan Gabriel, and Gabriel left-handed threw over his head. And somebody said on my timeline, said they would bet before training camp's over, the Gabriel hits him in the back of the helmet with a pass. And I kind of agree with that because there wasn't much margin for error to get the ball out there.
Right.
But that would go a long way if Jones can stay on the field. He even mentioned, the last 2 years he's battled the knee injuries, and, that's a lot of stress on his body, carrying that weight. And so I think he realized that, and he has an opportunity to be the left tackle long-term for the Browns. They didn't really go out and address that position in the draft. They signed a 12-year veteran, Cornelius Lucas, who could step in at right or left tackle. But I think it's DeJuan Jones's job to lose right now.
Fred, I think so too. And you mentioned, look, 6'8", if he's around 345, 350, you mentioned health, and that's always a big thing with a big lineman. But if you can just stay healthy, I think this kid, he could be a bookend for years for this franchise. And I don't say that lightly just because he went to Ohio State and whatever. I think he's got that physique, and if he's got the hunger, if that pilot light, like Marty used to say, stays on, I think he could be fantastic.
Yeah, and he's only 23,
right,
in his third year. So, we've seen just enough, it's unfortunately he only got to play 3 games at left tackle last year before he got hurt. But, they felt good enough about to pencil him in, and move on from Jedrick Wills and give him a shot to be the left tackle. And so even if he doesn't, he mentioned he likes right tackle better, but he's more than willing to be the left tackle. So even if he isn't the greatest left tackle and they evaluate it, he still could be a strong right tackle long-term as well. And they can draft another tackle, next year's draft with one of those first round picks or as free agent. But as far as I do think he's the key to the offensive line, they're going back to the zone blocking, which 4 of the 5 are kind of, entrenched in that system. And if Jones can hold his own, at left tackle, this offense could really, control the line of scrimmage running the ball with Judkins and Sampson and Jerome Ford.
Fred Greetham is our guest. Orange and Brown Report. Check him out on X at FredGreetham9. Fred, I want to circle back to Shedeur for just a second. And I came across an article yesterday. In the Super Bowl era, which goes back to 1966, there have been two fifth-round quarterbacks to have more than 10,000 career passing yards. Mark Brunell and Steve Grogan. That's not a lot since 1966. Shedeur coming out of the 5th-round spot. Realistically, Fred, forget about all the outside noise. Forget about Dad Dion and everything else. What do you see as far as a NFL legitimate career for Shedeur Sanders?
Well, that's quite a loaded question. The talent is there. I think most of your draft, pundits had him going in the 1st or 2nd round or being, the second best in the draft. Not all the NFL evaluators saw it that way. I think a lot of the question was some of the what did he bring in?
Mm-hmm.
When you boil it down, how many teams were looking for a starting quarterback? I don't know if it's less than 10, probably, but a lot of teams wouldn't be interested in him as a backup quarterback because he brings a lot of attention. A lot of people don't. You look at the list of backup quarterbacks in the NFL, they're usually not well known. So with that said, I think he's got a chance, to really have a great career. And I think with the Browns, the problem is in the past, they've always thrown guys out before they're ready. I don't think they would feel they need to. They like, obviously, Gabriel better than Sanders, but I think he's going to get a hard look. We know Andrew Berry keeps his draft picks. And so I think Gabriel and Sanders are on the roster this year, and they're going to get a good long look. And unfortunately, Browns go through quarterbacks quickly with injuries. They played 4 last year, 5 the year before. So I think that if they're patient with him, I think he can develop and be a top-end quarterback. I don't know if he would surpass Mark Brunell's career or Grogan, but I think if he was just an above-average starter in the NFL, that would go a long way here with the Browns. I mean, they haven't had that since Bernie Kosar.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you count Baker Mayfield 1 year, then he got injured and so forth. So I just think they took it as value. I think that, like I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of teams, the evaluation process, they didn't have him rated as highly of a quarterback ready to go as maybe, Cam Ward. And so that's why, obviously, the Browns had him somewhere probably end of the 3rd round, early 4th, why they took him in the 5th, because they felt it was such a value. So, I mean, that's what you do. You don't count on a guy you taken in the 3rd round to be your franchise quarterback, but you feel like they have a chance. So I think that's what this whole process will play out and see what happens. But he's working very hard, and I've seen him improve. He's obviously got the talent, accuracy, which, a lot of things it's going to just come down to. He's being asked to do things now that maybe he wasn't in college in a different system. So I think it'll be fascinating. If you could get either Gabriel or Sanders out of this draft to be the guy, that would be such a feather in the cap, because you would have them under contract, for a very, he reminds me a little bit of a left-handed Russell Wilson, guy come out of Wisconsin, 3rd round pick, and he established himself in Seattle, even though they went out and paid a lot of money to bring in Matt Flynn, and we all know he led them to Super Bowl. So I don't know. I think he's got the potential, but you got to use them and you got to develop them properly. And that'll be the question, with Tommy Rees, Kevin Stefanski, and the Browns, that they don't throw him out there maybe before, he's ready to play.
Fred, a couple more, we'll let you roll. I really appreciate you coming on today. It looks like His Majesty has finally made his mind up. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's going to get ready to sign with the Steelers here, maybe as early as this afternoon. If that indeed does happen, how do you think that works out?
Well, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, and you like your chances playing him twice a year with Mason Rudolph versus Aaron Rodgers, because he can fling the ball. And last year, I think he did, have some pretty good numbers. And with that defense with the Steelers, I think that makes them formidable. They're always a winning team and right on the doorstep of the playoffs. So it just makes it a little more daunting for the Browns, not only playing the Ravens twice with Lamar Jackson, but Bengals with Joe Burrow, and now Aaron Rodgers. So the task just doesn't get any easier. And, who knows what'll happen there, but, if he just plays adequately, he's got to be an improvement of what they had, in the past year or two.
No doubt. Fred Greetham is our guest. All right, Fred, it's a 3-question Thursday. We're going to fire the quiz at you. You ready?
Okay.
All right, here we go. This first one's perfect for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your excitement level for the upcoming Brown season?
Oh, boy. I'd have to say probably about 5.
About 5?
In the middle of the road. Last year at this time, I was pretty excited, thinking this team was really going to take the next step, but we all know what happened.
No doubt about it. All right, question number 2. Who wins the NBA title, Pacers or Thunder?
Thunder.
Thunder. Question 3. What is the maximum amount of cars Fred Greetham will wait behind in a fast food drive-thru?
Oh, boy. 4.
4? Well, you're a better man than I. If I see 1, I'm out. I'm going to the next one because I'm not waiting.
Yeah, it depends on what.
Depends what I'm trying to get.
That's what it is.
Yeah, no doubt. Fred, we always appreciate the time. More camp coming up next week. I'm sure that'll be cool. We will follow you on X, and we'll catch up with you down the road. Thanks again, Fred.
Always good to be with you, Sam. Thanks for having me on.
You bet, partner. Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report, checking in here on AM 1310 WDPN.